today we have Tony Edwards from BITSmart Technology. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Jodie. Right. Okay, so normally when I do insights, I talk about various elements of security. So I thought today be slightly different, but at the same time, a little bit the same. So I'm going to talk about something called Cyber Essentials and what it means to a small business. So Cyber Essentials is a government-backed scheme. It has been designed to help to protect your business, regardless of the size, against a whole range of the most common cyber attacks. Now, these cyber attacks include phishing, malware, password guessing, ransomware, and network attacks. And essentially, it's a cost-effective way to demonstrate your commitment as a business to cybersecurity. Cyber attacks, like I said, come in many shapes and sizes, but the vast majority are quite basic in nature. Imagine the digital equivalent of somebody trying to a thief trying to get into your front door to see if it's unlocked. So the Cyber Essentials scheme and the advice is designed to prevent those types of basic attacks. And it does this by addressing 5 of the most common, like I said, internet-based attacks. And the controls within this are secure configurations. By that, I mean using secure settings for your devices and your software, making sure you're changing passwords, removing unused accounts and software on a regular basis. Firewalls. You want to make sure you have a firewall in place to secure your internet connection. A firewall creates a barrier between your IT network and other networks to check if incoming traffic should be allowed access to yours. User access control. You want, especially, this is a good one if you've got staff, you want to be able to control who has access to what data and what services. You also need to be able to manage, that way you can also manage who has access to admin accounts as well, because that's really important. Quite often, especially in smaller businesses, everybody gets given an admin account and it's the same as their user account, which means that if somebody was hacked, they've got admin access to everything, which is why this control is quite important. Malware and virus protection. Kind of a given, really. We all want to be able to be safe. We don't want viruses clogging up our machines, but we need to make sure that we use properly configured anti-malware software. And ideally, you only want to be using trusted applications. And if you don't have a white list of applications, that might be something you might want to consider in the future, especially as you grow and if you take staff on. There's this whole thing, especially since the pandemic, around shadow IT, where users will download software that they've been using at home onto work devices because it means they can get the job done five minutes quicker or something like that. But again, that's a risk. And again, that's part of the malware protection element of the technical control. And then lastly, patch management. Using patch management to keep your devices and your software up to date is another way to protect against vulnerabilities. So how does Cyber Essentials address common threats? Basically, it doesn't. Not on its own, anyway. What it does do is it gets you and your staff to review every control within your business, essentially to see if it's fit for purpose, if your current controls meet the minimum standard, and if you or your staff are actually following that minimum standard. And while you can go and certify yourself, unless you actually know what you're looking for and what you're doing, I highly recommend you get a third party to help you with this certification if it's something you look to do. So the requirements for obtaining the certifications, you have to meet the requirements of those 5 technical controls which I just covered. These technical controls and requirements are reviewed and updated annually, purely because the cybersecurity space changes so much. And in April 2023, they were last updated, and there were a number of changes made which affect things like user devices, clarification on firmware. So firmware, which is elements to software which work behind the scenes on making sure you've got the latest drivers on your device and that sort of thing. That's now all covered under software. Contractor devices is something that changed in the last update. If you use contractors or VAs or something like that, they're pre-2023, their devices were in scope of the certification. Now they're not. Device unlocking and a couple of other bits and pieces as well, which I forgot I put onto this slide. There you go. So there are benefits to becoming certified, and they include increased confidence from customers, improved awareness around cybersecurity. Your risk will be reduced slightly, but it can also help you as an SME win contracts with bigger companies. And that's because many of these large companies require this certification as a minimum. And when I say this certification, there are essentially two. You've got the basic, which is a self-assessment, simple audit process. It's a good first step into cybersecurity. It costs around £300 to get the certification, but it does also include some cyber liability insurance. So if you're looking at getting cyber insurance, this might be a cheaper way of doing it. Like I said, you can try and do it yourself. And most IT providers can help with this at various costs. Then you have Cyber Essentials Plus, which is an enhanced version. It covers the same 5 technical controls, but it has a hands-on, you get a hands-on technical verification from an external assessor. Now, these cyber assessors have to go through vigorous training, and the cost can be as long as a piece of string. For most of us in the room, we are what the Cyber Essentials refer to as a micro company. I don't think anybody in the room has more than 9 users. So if you wanted to go and get certified, it would be £300 plus VAT. It goes up depending on the number of users. But if you've got more than 250, which is the max, which is 250 plus, it's £500. So it will range between £300 and £500 for that basic one. There are a couple of other options. There is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework and ISO 27001. These are 2 of the most widely adopted frameworks in the space. Both are a lot more in-depth than Cyber Essentials. The NIST framework looks more into risk factors, whereas the ISO has 114 different technical controls. What's quite good if you wanted to start and not get certified is you could look at NIST, because other than your time, there's no associated cost, but there's no real certification. So you can say you're aligned to the framework, but you've got no real proof. And like GDPR, it's aimed to be a living document. The ISO certification, when you get certified, is valid for 3 years. ISO certification can be costly, especially to a smaller business. But again, like GDPR, should be treated as a living document as well. And if you wanted to utilize both, again, you can do. They are essentially designed to kind of slot together and work in tandem. So, next steps. I think you should consider whether Cyber Essentials is for you and your business. Personally, the way things are going, I think every business should be considering it at the very least. You also want to check if your IT service provider is Cyber Essentials certified as a minimum. There is no regulation in my industry right now, but that is going to change over the next 24 months, I believe. And Cyber Essentials as a minimum is going to be that, I believe. But again, I know there are rumors in the industry that every ISP or MSP will need the plus verification, which means I'm probably going to have to go and spend about $3,000 in about a year's time to get the plus certification. Please read the documents that are available on the National Cybersecurity website around the certification. And there is a Cyber Essentials Readiness Toolkit on there as well. That will give you a basic understanding of the standards and the types of questions you need to answer. Plus, it will tell you if you're ready to certify or not. It's basically a wizard that will take you through a very, very basic, and it will say at the end, yes, you can go and get certified, or no, you need to go and do X, Y, and Z. If you're ready, you can, like I said, do it alone, or you can get help. It's £300 plus VAT for the certification. That's on a 12-month basis, so you have to renew it every 12 months. Hence why I say keep following the standards. Most IT companies will help with certification. Their prices will differ depending on the IT company and if they support your infrastructure or not. By that, I mean if you're a managed client of theirs or not. Now, the highest I've seen someone get quoted for a Cyber Essentials basic walkthrough essentially was about £8,000. I've also seen people do it for about £1,000. So it's finger in the air because they can essentially charge what they want. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat or book a one-to-one. If you need any help, book a one-to-one. And yes, I am certified. It's been 10 minutes and 30 seconds, so I'll end it there.
That was really interesting. So much information. Thank you, Tony. So if anybody has got any questions, just pop them in the chat and I'm sure Tony will come back to you.